My name is Jeremiah Evans, and I am a pastor. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christ follower. But I kind of want to take that mask off and give permission to the person who is listening that is not. This is not going to be a bold Christian statement in your face. This is going to be me talking on a fence line, kind of in between the Democratic world, the Republican world, as well as those who wouldn't touch either one of them with a 10-foot pole. Maybe you're somebody who has some very, very strong political beliefs, one way or the other. You've got people who are pro-life, pro-choice. There's those who are living in homosexual lifestyles, and there are those who believe that shouldn't even be a thing. I'm not addressing any of that individually. I would encourage you to listen all the way through this and hear my heart as I share a little bit of reflection on what I feel has gone on in the last several weeks, several months over the course of this election. In my personal existence, I'll just say it like this. Our great-grandparents, our grandparents, our older parents, and I say older just because go a little bit farther back in history, and I think that you would hear a declaration of similarity just in different times, in different seasons of presidential elections, where there was so much dissension, disunity, so much so that we've had presidents in the past assassinated based on a strong diversity in belief systems. So that has always existed. It's nothing new. The intensity in what we're seeing in the social media and how it's just at face value. You can click on your social media right now and see people beating the tar out of people. You can see people posting stuff all over the place. We're equating relational fabrication within how we see people connect politically on the Republican, Democratic, or Independent side of things. In my personal life, I've never seen such an intensity of disunity amongst people based on their beliefs, based on being a Christ follower, based on being a non-believer, or based on being a believer who's very hypocritical, not living it out, or somebody who has a stance on a Democratic thinking or a Republican thinking state of mind, and seeing what this has escalated to. The breakouts on the colleges, the rioting in the cities, the closeness of election, how the election's being done, our constitutional rights, what's being at jeopardy, the fear that comes from the Democratic Party of having somebody like Trump in, and the fears of the Republican Party having somebody like Hillary come in, and it's all chaotic. And it's really caught me off. So here's a confession of a pastor. I don't know how to respond. I've not known how to respond. I've not known what to say as somebody who genuinely believes in a God, in a Jesus who spends his entire life pursuing people to love people and to shepherd them and that kind of thing. And while doing that, also having a belief system that falls into the way that our country is being ran, and having the freedom to vote and have a voice and all that kind of thing. Because now all of a sudden, what I believe in God and how we're handling and managing our country based on people who are good in some ways and bad in other ways, all of a sudden it just interconnects and everything explodes, and everything is held in account on what I believe and what I don't. And man, it's aggressive. It's more aggressive than it has ever been. And I think part of the reason why it's so aggressive is it's kind of like when you bottle up so much anger or so much feeling or so much emotion about something, and then it finally just comes out. It's like, well, we've lived in the last 50 years of not really having a platform to just speak out and come out. I mean, we invented the term "come out of the closet" for the terms of people relationally coming out and exposing where they're really at and that kind of thing. And I think we're living in a generation of people who are angry. Now watch this, generation of people who are angry. In the older generation, even our ancestors, some of us have said our ancestors would roll over on the graves if Hillary got it, if Trump got it. I mean, it's both sides. Like you're hearing the same thing, just in a different platform of thought. And then you go into our grandparents and our parents and the aggression of, oh my goodness, what's next, and all this fear, this anxiety, this turmoil, this brokenness. And I'm just sitting here like, wow. And then all of a sudden, the Republican voting side has been equated with this, that's the majority of Christians or people who believe in God. So now we're going to take our belief in God and what we set on to lead governmentally. Yeah, we have an angle, but I'm just bringing this all together, and I'm thinking, man, it's getting aggressive, and I think part of that is because we've tucked it under the rug for a long time, going from the segregationalist thinking where blacks are in their community, whites are in their community, Latinos are in their community. Oh, and now in the Christian community, when we're going to have church, do church, and supposed to be under God, one body, one God, one Holy Spirit, one everything. The world is seeing this segregated thinking. We've got black churches, we've got white churches. Hey, we're going to have we're going to reach out to, the Hispanic speaking people in our community. Oh, let's create a building for them so that they can go hang out by themselves. And the church has created this segregated means of doing life with people. And then we get to a vote like this where that's all it has been for quite some time. And there's this explosion, and all of a sudden this very, very, very strong pointed finger that's saying, hey, church, not only are you standing on this, but your lifestyle doesn't match up with what you're standing for. Instead, it's retaliation, it's reflection, and the Christian people are looking at this country saying, but I'm not the one rioting. Like, I'm not the one breaking windows out. So we've classified this rioting, this anger, this frustration, this turmoil as rejection of law. So lawlessness, we see that. But the lawlessness side of the group of people are looking at the Christian world, and they're like, yeah, we're doing this because you're standing for that, you're pushing towards that, yet the reflection and the fruit of how you're handling people in society and in the world displays that if you hate them. And there's this turmoil, and neither one is really understanding the other side. So here I am, a pastor who genuinely wants to love people and impact people's lives and focus on the individual in front of me, not what the government is doing, even though I get to have a little bit of say-so in that. Like, I've not known how to respond. I don't know whether to get mad at the church in general, the church, the kingdom of God, like churches all over America and the world. I don't know whether to get frustrated at what we're not doing and stand up and be a voice there, or whether I'm supposed to be looking at the rest of the world and just being frustrated at the fact that you want to run and operate our country in this way or that way. And there's so much diversity in all of that I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? There's a brokenness. There's a line of disconnect. There's an amplified means of no middle ground, so much so that it has caused friction all the way into the home. With parents and their children, with an entire nation. We've wanted our push towards this vote of presidential candidates that we had to pick from. Our push towards that was this idea that we have hope that our country could become better. But at the end of the day, no matter where we fell, huge portion of the country is turmoil as if they lost hope based on what's next. The next part that I'm gonna point out, or that I'm gonna highlight, is I am a Christian. I do believe that there is a God. I believe that the story and the message of God is pretty powerful, and it brings hope and it brings peace. And in turn, my call as a Christ follower is to love others. So I have a 2-point calling. It's this simple. I mean, for those of you who believe in God or don't believe in God, that's okay. But for me, it's to love God with everything I got. And that means, being obedient to Him and what I feel like His Word tells me to do, and that kind of thing. And the other part of it is to love people. Love others. So loving God, loving others. That kind of summarizes it. And I'll just be honest with you, I feel like I do great sometimes and suck most of the time. That's just the truth. It sounds like every president that we've ever had. It sounds like if I were president, I'd be beat up and praised all at the same time. And that's because we as people are imperfect people, and we're broken people. Like, we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to have a perfect president. We're never going to have a perfect senator, mayor, governor, chief of police or pastor. We're just never going to have a perfect one. So no matter what, there's always going to be this tension of, man, that's great. Oh, man, I can't believe you're doing that. Like, it's going to always exist. But this is where I have come, and I truly believe, listen to me, I truly believe that the person who is following Christ has got to a place where they're voicing their opinion in the way that they should run and drive, and in turn, believing in God, and that stands for people who don't really care that the reason you stand on your opinion is because you believe in God, yet we hold that like, we believe in God, and that's why we this, and you should understand that, so come on with us. And that's like, no matter what we say, no matter what we do, that's not the case. That doesn't really happen. And listen to the person who's standing on the other side of the fence. I mean, to stand in the pro-choice and having that, and that being your conviction, like, no matter what, like, there's going to be people who just can't fall under that same conviction as you, and for the other person, it just isn't going to work out that way. But let me summarize all of this. Like, I'll even use specifics. Whether, as some Christians believe in alternative lifestyles, living a life as a homosexual or not, whether you are for that or not for that, and for the person who is for that. Now let me just give both sides of the fence. No matter what I believe about homosexuality, no matter what you believe about for or against homosexuality, here's the truth. There's one thing we should both have in common, and there's one driving factor in the midst of that. We should still love them. Like, that is it. Loving the person, not the person based on what they believe or don't believe. So, for the person who is for abortion, and for the person who is against, no matter what reasons, I'm putting it all on the table. For the person who's for abortion and against abortion, here's the deal. I have biblical convictions, religious convictions, based on where I stand and how I stand on that. But I can't expect people who don't have the same convictions as me to do that. So for me to get on as, I'm a Christian and this is what I believe, and I'm ticked off that you believe otherwise, or go pro swinging my banner, that's not love. That's not love. I should be able to voice my opinion based on what I think and what I believe, and it can be completely opposite of you. But here's the truth. There is a person making a decision to get an abortion. And in that moment, there is a person that genuinely needs loved, no matter how people think about how they handle their situation. Love is the link. And I'm not trying to on either side of the fence. I'm not being mean and vicious here. I'm not running with the gay parade. And I'm not standing on the corners with the Christian sign saying you're going to hell because you're whatever. I'm not that guy. I'm not that person. I'm somebody who genuinely believes in what the Word of God says about God, and I want to follow that and pursue that and that kind of thing. But at the same time, that motivation is to engage with people who don't think the way that I think. I mean, I want to know why you think the way that you think. I want to know what you know. So here's a confession. My confession is, I don't necessarily know how to do that. I just don't want what you think and what I think to be what identifies us and being united in one and loving one another. So here's the thing, all in all. If you are honestly looking for hope and peace in a government who is ran by imperfect people, you'll never have hope and you'll never have peace. I believe the game changer of the country that we live in today, the game changer of our country that we live in today, isn't who we put in office. It's who we choose to love in the moment we're given an opportunity to love. Is it a Christian and somebody who's following God even though I don't believe in what they believe in? I have the option to love that person or to not love that person. I mean, whether it's biblical principle or not, one of the greatest gifts that we have as individuals is to love and to forgive and to empower. We can stand on two opposite sides of the fence in what we think and believe, but we can also compromise in the area of how we treat one another. There's too many people that are hungry. There's too many people that are broken. there is the raped, there is the homeless, there is the hungry, there is the orphan. No matter how they got there and what situations come out of it, no matter what bad happenings happen in your family to get you to where you're at in life, there should be one thing that we all have in common, working together to meet each other's needs, one person at a time. One person at a time. Throughout the history of life, throughout the history of time, here's one thing that is absolutely common, even for you individually. Do you want to know what every argument that you have ever been in has in common? You're a part of it. Any argument that I've ever been in, I've been a part of it. We get to choose where we go with what we know and how we love with the people that are in our circle of influence. We get to choose to be one of two things. We get to choose to be a part of the problem, or we get to be a part of the solution. When people choose to naysay you, there could be a standing battle and a cry out or even a riot that explodes from within. Or we can choose to fight with a battle not of hands, flesh, or fists, or sword, or gun, but of the heart. I choose to love you in spite of you disagreeing with me. We can agree to disagree, even though these are some radical things that we're talking about. But if you're shaped by what you're for or against, then what that exposes is that you're not for individuals and making a difference. You're for an idea. You're for an idea. And that idea can carry in and shape the characteristic and the personality of who you are. But I will tell you what will define who you are is who you make a difference in their lives. You get to do it pro, or you get to do it negatively. You get to positively influence somebody, you get to negatively influence somebody. Our country is not waving the banner of unity right now. People of America, we are the game changers. We are the ones who have the opportunity, one life at a time, one person at a time, one home at a time, one community at a time, to be a light into people's lives. Yeah, obviously that's some great lingo for us Christians who believe in God and feel like we want to shine the light of Christ into people's lives. But I also know that for those of you who are not God believers and Christ followers, also the desire to do good. So why don't we change the course of history and unify in spite of our disagreements and what we stand on, and choose to make people matter? Why don't we love people in spite of where they're at? All in all, my apology is this, that I've waved the flag or the banner of what I stand on higher and harder than the people I choose to love. For that, I'm sorry.